All right, old school NBA fans, self-research, NBA facts. Got another video for you. As always, thanks to anybody who watches my videos, subscribes to my channel. I really appreciate it. I want to send us another special thank you to my man, Isle Sabag. Man, thank you so much for all your generosity. I really appreciate it. And just so you know, you can see a little different angle in here, slightly different format. All those super thankses and stuff, the money's going to good use. I got myself a whiteboard, and I'm going to use it. So, in this video here, what I'm talking about is, and I've done a few videos on the narrative of Michael Jordan played in a watered-down era, okay? Now, we've only ever heard this, or I have at least, maybe you guys have heard different. Michael Jordan, in the era of the 90s, like when the expansion happened in 89, 90, and then in 96, that time frame is watered down because of expansion. But have you ever heard that mentioned in any other sport about any other team or player? And the more that I've dug into this, why not? Because there's legitimate cases to be made that all these guys played in watered down eras in that time period, because all the sports were expanding. NHL was the most aggressive. The NBA was pretty aggressive. MLB, NFL, they all were expanding. So I'll start with the NFL. NFL in 1994 had 28 teams. They had that for a while. I think the expansion before that was like in the 70s. It was like Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and I want to say it was Seattle Seahawks, but I'm not 100% on that. But anyway, yeah, I did some expanding, whatever. It was like that for a very long time, all the way till 1995. They expanded the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Carolina Panthers. Now, have you ever heard anybody say that, whether it be the Cowboys in 95 or Green Bay, who won the Super Bowl in, 96 season, they got to the Super Bowl in 97. Oh, that was a watered down era. I've never heard that before, ever. Why not? During an expansion. Then they expanded again in 1999. They added another team, Cleveland. 3 years later, 2002, Houston Texans. Did you ever hear anybody say, oh, well, the Rams, who won the Super Bowl in 99 and in the Super Bowl in 01, did you ever hear anybody ever say, oh, well, it was a watered down era, okay? NFL didn't do a super aggressive expansion, okay? All right, maybe we'll let you get away with that one. All right, fine, fair enough. Major League Baseball. In 1992, there was 26 teams. They expanded 2 teams, Colorado Rockies and the Florida Marlins. Okay, so the next season in 94, they had the strike-shortened year. They actually realigned to 3 divisions. 4 years later, in 1998, they expanded again, another 2 teams. So that's now 4 teams in 5 years. The Tampa Bay Devil Rays at the time, and the Arizona Diamondbacks. Okay, right here. 98, now they're at 30 teams. 1998. The Yankees win a three-peat, all right? They won a three-peat from 1998 to 2000. They won 3 world championships in a row. Well, in their division was the 63-win Tampa Bay Rays, 63 and 99, and the and the Yankees beat them that year. They were 11 and 1. Tampa was in their division. They just ran roughshod over them. I mean, you got an expansion team in your division. Has anybody ever mentioned anything about, oh, the Yankees, they dominated, it was watered down? There's 4 expansion teams in 5 years, okay? So in the NBA, when there was 89, 90, they didn't expand again until 96. It did happen, in a row. It was 2 and 2, but still, over a 5-year period, you had 4 expansion teams, just like Major League Baseball. Colorado, Florida, Tampa Bay, and Arizona. Same thing. It might, like I said, it might have been closer together in the beginning, but my thinking is it might have given them more time to, make these teams more competitive. And then the The Devil Rays, in 98, they were 63 and 99. Obviously, their expansion, they're not very good. In 99, they were 69 and 93. In 2000, they were 69 and 92. And in 01, they were 62 and 100. So this team is losing, anywhere from 92 to 100 games in their first 4 years in existence. Of course, who can blame them, right? Whatever. The Yankees actually were in the World Series in 01 also. They had the Devil Rays in their division, who they beat up on them. They were 11-3 on them until the last series of the year, where the Yankees kind of held back their starters. They were 16 and a half games up. So they actually beat them 12 out of 18 games because of that last 4-game series that the Rays won 3 out of 4 in Tampa, because the Yankees basically rested all their starters, got ready for the playoffs. Okay, so if we're not going to say the Yankees played in a watered-down era, and they played the Diamondbacks in the World Series because they got Curt Schilling and Randy Johnson, and they were no typical ordinary expansion team when you have those guys. Luis Gonzalez, goes from like 25 to 30 to 57 home runs, obviously on steroids. That was just that era. But I don't see how that wouldn't be at least considered a little bit watered down. Maybe just a little watered down. Maybe a little bit because they expanded 4 teams in 5 years. Okay. Well, what about the NHL? And the one they call the Great One. Wayne Gretzky. His first year in the 1978-79 season was actually in the WHA, the World Hockey Association. Now, I'm not a huge hockey fan. I found out a lot of this stuff by myself. Looking it up. Well, they did kind of like a merge between the World Hockey Association and the NHL. They brought in 4 teams: the Winnipeg Jets, the Hartford Whalers, the Quebec Nordiques, and the Edmonton Oilers. These 4 teams right here, okay? They brought them in. So most of those teams weren't very good. In fact, there was a total of, I believe it was 9 teams in the WHA. The only player who was like a Hall of Fame, like an NHL Hall of Fame player, was a guy named Mark Howe. That's it. Now, there was 2 18-year-old players, and I'm guessing, I don't know this, but I'm guessing that they just either weren't old enough or weren't good enough, whatever, for the NHL. That was Wayne Gretzky, who was on Edmonton, but they were in the World Hockey Association, not in the NHL yet, and Mark Messier, who was on the Cincinnati Stingers. I've never even heard of that team before. Funny. But anyway, somehow Edmonton snagged Mark Messier. So they got Messier and Gretzky right away. Young team. But they merged 4 teams that were basically expansion teams right away. Winnipeg, Hartford, Quebec, and Edmonton. Those 4 were expansion. So right away, immediately, Wayne Gretzky, Mark Messier, they're playing in an expansion era. All right. Now, a lot of people think Wayne Gretzky's the greatest of all time, and I'm not arguing with that. But what Edmonton did was they had Gretzky and Messier in 1980, right? In 1981, they draft Yari Curry, who's a top 100 player, Paul Coffey, a top 100 player, and another Hall of Famer named Glenn Anderson in 81. In 1982, they then draft Grant Fuhrer, who is a top 100 goalkeeper. I think he's like maybe one of the 5 or 6 best goalkeepers of all time. And then by 84, they're winning the Stanley Cup. They win 4 total, a dynasty. Gretzky, of course, leaves after the 88 season. And 2 years later, in 1990, Edmonton wins the Stanley Cup without Gretzky. So it's like Gretzky is playing on a loaded team, loaded. And nobody ever brings that up. Never does anybody bring up how loaded Gretzky's team was. Now, people can say about, well, he made those guys this, that, but they all, after Gretzky left, got accolades in their own right. Mark Messier, he got 2 Hart trophies after Gretzky. One of them on a whole nother team, the New York Rangers, won the Stanley Cup without him. So, anyway, how about a guy named Mario Lemieux? Mario Lemieux is regarded by most people who know hockey as a top 5 all-time, at least goal scorer, if not player, period. Mario Lemieux was awesome. So Mario Lemieux was playing in a time where he comes in the league in 1985, okay. In the 1991-92 season, the NHL, they had 21 teams. They went from 17 teams in 1979. In 1980, after they merged with the WHA, they now go to 21 teams. Okay? So they have 21 teams. They have that for basically a decade. In the 1991-92 season, they add the San Jose Sharks. So now there are 22 teams. Okay, they added one expansion team. In the 92-93 season, they add two more. Ottawa Senators and the Tampa Bay Lightning. So now they're at 24 teams. In the 93-94 season, they add two more teams. Anaheim and Florida. So now they're at 26 teams as of the 93-94 season. Messier won his last Stanley Cup in 94. Gretzky's still playing. He plays all the way until 1999. So how is all this expansion just from 92 to 94 is 5 teams just in that little stretch? You got 5 teams: San Jose, Ottawa, Tampa Bay, Anaheim, and Florida. 5. So Mario Lemieux's, peak, whatever you want to call it, was during this time. He also had a guy named Jaromir Jagr, who's another probably top 10 all-time player. They were on the same team. They won back-to-back Stanley Cups in the early 90s. So, again, have you ever heard a peep about Wayne Gretzky, Mark Messier, Mario Lemieux ever being in a watered-down expansion era? I've never heard it. Okay, so, in the NBA, the 90s are regarded as the best era for big men. Okay, I don't even know if that's up for dispute, but whatever. You had, in the beginning of the 90s, you had Robert Parrish, you had Moses Malone, who were, coming towards the end of their career, but still, decent players. Jack Sikma, another Hall of Fame center. David Robinson came in 1990. He's now in the league. Then in 92, 93, you got Shaq, you got Alonzo Mourning. Oh, you also had Akeem Olajuwon and Patrick Ewing. I forgot about that. Those guys were in their primes going into the 90s, along with David Robinson, Robert Parrish, Moses Malone, Jack Sikma, all those guys, Mark Eaton, a 2-time Defensive Player of the Year. And then 92, 93, you got Alonzo Mourning, Dikembe Mutombo, Shaquille O'Neal. You got all these great big men in that era. Have you ever heard anyone say, yeah, but they were playing in a watered-down era? I've never heard that before, ever. I've never heard it. Only Michael Jordan, because he won those championships, his era was watered down. Okay, so in the NHL, in that same time frame, in the 90s, some of the best, maybe the best goalkeepers of all time, they won the Jennings trophies the most, and that was whoever allowed the fewest goals in the season won the Jennings trophy. So Dominic Hasek won 3 of them. Ed Belfour won 4 of them. Martin Brodeur won 5, and Patrick Waugh won 5. What do those guys all have in common? They all had their prime in the 90s during the expansion era, where there was 5 teams in 3 years. Now, have you ever in your life heard anyone say, yeah, but those guys were playing during the expansion, watered down era? If so, I personally have never heard it in my entire life. I've just never heard that. And also, the NHL didn't just stop there. In 99, they added the Nashville Predators. In 2000, Winnipeg, because they moved, I think they moved to, they were the Coyotes, Arizona or Phoenix, whatever, Phoenix Coyotes. So Winnipeg got their franchise back in 2000. So now they're at 28 teams. And then in the 2000-2001 season, Minnesota and Columbus, now they're at 30 teams. So that means in the course from 92 to 01, that'd be 10 years. They go from 21 teams to 30. They expanded 9 teams. Basically, a third of the league just got expanded over a 9-10-year period. Have you ever heard anyone say that Mario Lemieux or any of these great goalkeepers that I named played in a watered-down era? I've never heard it in my entire life. I never heard the Yankees and Derek Jeter. Oh, well, yeah, but they won that three-peat when they had the Tampa Bay Rays, an expansion team in their division, to pick up easy wins, to get the highest seed, to make it easier for them to win the World Series. Never heard it in my life. I never heard that, well, Denver won those back-to-back Super Bowls, but that was a watered-down era because they had expansion teams. In the NFL, the expansion teams actually got pretty good pretty quick because of free agency. They were able to sign a bunch of guys, whatever. But still, you needed like 100 new players, basically, for the league. That didn't water it down, though. I've never heard it in my life. And, of course, my favorite. Now, I know I've said this before, and I don't want to be redundant, but, you know, there might be people that haven't seen some of my other videos. So, the NBA in 1968 had 12 teams, okay? They had 12. They expanded 2. So that'd be 69, and then in 70, they now have 14 teams. In 71, they expanded 3 more to get to 17. So they go from 12 in 68 to 17 in 71. 5 expansion teams over a 3-year period. All right? And at the in 75, they expanded 1 more. And at that time, in 1975, where they had 18 teams in the league, where they only had 12 in 7 years prior, so they increased the league 50%, going from 12 to 18. And at the same time, concurrently, the ABA had 10 teams with the likes of George Gervin, Julius Erving, Artis Gilmore, Dan Eisel. There's a bunch of really good players. Rick Barry, Mel Daniels. There were some very good players who played in the ABA that sucked them away from the NBA to make the NBA even more watered down. So have you ever in your life heard anyone say that Dr. J even played in a watered down second-class league of the ABA? I've never heard that even. They just said, oh yeah, he played in the ABA. Never that it was watered down or second class. Or how about Kareem Abdul-Jabbar? When he was winning his MVPs and even his, one championship before joining the Lakers, Magic in 1980, he only won 1 in 10 years. Do you remember anyone ever saying, oh, well, Kareem played in a watered-down era, so you got to discount a lot of that stuff. If Dr. J and those other guys were in there, he wouldn't have won as many MVP. Have you ever heard that? Or Boston winning 2 out of 3 years and having a 68-win season. Did you ever hear anybody say, yeah, but that was during the ABA and the expansion and all that. It was watered down. Never in my life have I heard it. The only time I heard it was about 10 years ago from idiots like Shannon Sharp, Colin Cowherd, Nick Wright, Kendrick Perkins, all these fools and the minions and brainwashed sheep who repeat these talking points. That's the only people I've ever heard it about. Now, they'll come up with some good excuses how the NFL was not watered down, Major League Baseball was not watered down, and even the NHL was not watered down, even though it expanded way more aggressive than the NBA did. And the 70s, which had a whole nother league with a lot of good players in it, and they expanded 50%. They expanded 6 teams in 7 years when they started with 12. They didn't start with 23 like in 89. 88, there was 23. Then they went to 25. Then they went to 27. Then there's a 6-year gap. Then they add 2 more. So that's the big watered down expansion theory, whatever. The NHL was way more aggressive. And Major League Baseball was not as aggressive, but still, it was somewhat watered down, right? Does anyone ever mention that? I've never heard it in my life. And the same with NFL. They expanded 2 teams in 95, 1 in 99, 1 in 02. Now, obviously, that's 200 players in a 7-year span. You gotta come up with 200 new players. So I've never heard any of this stuff in my life. If you guys have, please let me know where you heard it from and, send me the link or whatever, because I've never heard it in my whole life. So anyway, that's all I got for this video. This is probably the last one I'm going to do about the watered down thing. I know I've done a few of those lately, but never like this, showing that other sports were doing the exact same thing. Some of them even more aggressive than what the NBA was doing, but only Michael Jordan. Never a mention of any, like Olajuwon when he won his back-to-backs. No mention of it. How about the Pistons in 89 and 90, the first 2 years of expansion? Have you ever heard anyone say, yeah, the Pistons won, though it was in a watered-down era? Have you ever heard that before? I've never heard it. Exactly. That's why ridiculous. It's just something to hold against Michael Jordan by these constant haters who just want to crown their fake king, LeBron. So anyway, that's all I got for this video. If you liked it, please hit the like button. And if you haven't subscribed, please do already. Thanks for watching. Yeah, I got the whiteboard now. I'm going to try to be using it a little more, incorporate into things. And that's it for now.